Ever wondered what it's like to work in law enforcement? Here on Behind the Star, we share stories about the Orange County Sheriff's Office, Central Florida's largest law enforcement agency. From forensics to dispatch to the deputies on patrol, we'll talk to the brave men and women who protect our community. This is Behind the Star, the official podcast of the Orange County Sheriff's Office. Welcome to Behind the Star, the official podcast of the Orange County Sheriff's Office. My name is Jon Busdeker, your host here at Behind the Star, and this time we are talking about money. And we're going to talk about money here in a second, but before I get to our guest this week, I want to let you know we're also celebrating, I guess is the way to say it, National Crime Victims' Rights Week. We're going to have some stuff out on that this week. We have a fantastic team of victim advocates here at the Orange County Sheriff's Office. We've chatted with them before on the podcast, and so go back and listen to that episode. They do amazing work here at the Sheriff's Office. Also this week, actually last week, I got a chance to go check out our ERT Tryouts, which is our emergency response team tryouts. We're going to have a video up on our social media about that. It was interesting to watch because they got to do all this stuff to try out for the team, and part of it is they have to put on these gas masks and then they take them off and they got to get gas to see what it's like, and it made good video, I'll say that. And so anyway, all of that's going to be on our social media. If you follow us, great. If you don't, follow us now on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all the places that you check your social media. So anyway, like I said, this week is all about money. Specifically, it's about our economic crimes squad, and I have Detectives Brian Hummel and Detective Jacob Devine here on Behind the Star. Welcome to Behind the Star.
Thank you.
Hey, John.
All right. All right. So fellas, like I said, we're talking all about money, which I'm sure a lot of people are interested in. And I'm sure it's one of the main reasons people come to the sheriff's office to report a crime, because it has to do with money. So before we get super far into it, Detective Hummel, I'm going to ask you, tell me what exactly is economic crimes and what do you investigate?
So in economic crimes, we pretty much investigate anything that touches money. I got a laundry list of things I can go down. I'll just kind of skim across it. But, fraudulent use of credit card, debit card, just think of that on, someone used my credit card to buy a bunch of stuff and I don't know who it was.
Yeah.
Identity theft, check fraud, forgery. We deal with skimmers and gas pumps and ATMs, real estate fraud, things involving businesses such as embezzlement, advanced fee schemes. We even delve into cryptocurrency, which digital currency, the big thing that a lot of young people are getting into.
And, I still don't understand it. So maybe you two can explain to me cryptocurrency at some point.
Yeah, I can actually chime in on that.
Okay.
Cryptocurrency itself is not fraudulent.
What is
it's data, encrypted data that represents funds or money. So we ourselves give it some type of monetary value. In itself, it is not something to be scared of, but it is being used to facilitate fraud. So it's being used to send people through internet, online, different funds to pretty much drain their bank accounts.
Yeah, and I think most people, they do know Bitcoin. They may not know how it operates and how it's all mined and all that, but they've seen the term in the news.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and Bitcoin's not the only platform. There's Bitcoin, Litecoin. Dogecoin is one of the popular ones now just because it's kind of a internet meme. But yeah, there's cryptocurrency itself is nothing to be afraid of as of strictly fraud, but it is something to watch out for if you're being asked to go to a Bitcoin ATM to deposit funds for somebody.
Yeah, and I want to get into that because I'm sure this is a brand new thing for economic crimes divisions and squads across the country.
Yeah, this is something that we're kind of breaking into everywhere. The federal realm is also breaking into this world, and we're actually kind of heading it here in Central Florida.
So I'll ask you, Detective Devine, what are the most common reasons people sort of reach out to economic crimes? Are there certain things that you deal with all the time?
There are certain things that we see. Most popular around this time is the Irs scams that we'll get. Another popular one we're actually dealing with right now today is the relative in trouble. You get that phone call where somebody's been involved in an accident and they need medical bills, or someone's been arrested. Just to reiterate, no law enforcement officer is ever going to ask for money over the phone. We have overdue power bills, romance schemes, phishing emails, business email compromise. That's the one where you may own a business or you may facilitate the transfer of funds through an email, you'll receive an email from your banker or somebody where it looks like it's their email, but it's actually not. It's just a number or a digit is slightly off. You authorize those funds to be transferred, and that's something that's called that phishing email scam. You have to watch out.
Yeah, that's something we see a lot of that in title closings on home closing. So it's very important to people that are listening. If you are closing on a home and you've received instructions from like your title company, your realtor, like, hey, we're closing tomorrow, please wire these funds to the title company. That's generally how it works. If you receive an email the next day or later that night, like, hey, we've changed our title instructions, and now all of a sudden they want you to wire your $30,000-$40,000 to some other address, you need to follow up with your realtor immediately and even call the title company to verify before you just blindly send that money. Because we've seen it's very destructive, and we've seen people lose, a lot of money that way. And then now you've also compromised your ability to get the home.
And that's an interesting point that you make because, that's a time when people are, they first of all, they have a lot of money because they're maybe putting it down on a house.
Sure.
And they're probably really looking forward to getting this house.
Super excited.
And they don't know, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, you don't know this process.
Yeah.
If somebody says, wire us this, wire us that, you might say, all right, well, I want to make sure I get my house. And so you're already sort of in this vulnerable position.
Absolutely.
And then you can lose all your savings.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've heard that quite a few times is, people didn't want to possibly lose the house. They had been in a bidding war already. They didn't want to take the chance on losing it. So they just went ahead and sent it because they were concerned that, that the delay may cause them not to get their home.
So, yeah, Detective Devine, I want to ask you, is that sort of how these scams work? They find people that are vulnerable, or is it, they just sort of cast a wide net? You send out 10,000 phone calls, and if you get one person that sort of, takes the bait,
right,
you've done your job as a scammer.
Now, I don't want to say that. I don't want to make it sound like the sky is falling. But anywhere anybody can be a victim of this scam. This is where our unit is kind of unique. It does not discriminate of age, race, sex, anything.
And I think that's a misnomer. I think a lot of times when you hear about phone scams that you think, my grandma's the one that's going to get scammed, and I'm too smart to get scammed. But it sounds like that's not always the case.
No, that's not always the case. It's across the board. If it strikes a nerve where it gets you nervous, then you're more likely to send that money or fall victim to the scam.
So Detective Hummel, let's say I'm a victim of it. I'm a victim of a phone scam, and I sent some money out. What can I do? It seems like people that make these phone calls on the other end, they might not be in Orange County. They might not be in the United States. Who knows where they are? How do you even sort of go after something like that?
Right. So we always we try to inform people that there's a couple steps they should go through. First, immediately contact your bank or your credit card company or whoever if you realize that you've been the victim of a scam, like immediately or within a short period of time. You can contact your bank if it was, wire transfer, say it was like a credit card, something like that, and they have the chance of freezing it or reversing that charge. Next thing to do, obviously, is to contact law enforcement. And the sooner that we can get involved, the sooner that we can either try to catch these people or recover the funds. That's our overall goal, obviously, as investigators, are to identify who's responsible for this and recover some funds if possible.
So where do you start, though? If you get these reports come in and you get assigned the case, where do you even start?
Well, that's another thing that's very different about our unit compared to, say, some other units, say like robbery. It's pretty straightforward on, I want to look at surveillance, I want to interview witnesses, kind of a blueprint on how to follow things.
Yeah, this is not a unit where we have a checklist. There's not a single case that we get that's unique to every, or the same across the board. Every single case is unique. In this particular case that you're talking about, where if you received a phone call, number one for us, we're going to try to recover the money. If we get it in a timely manner, that's going to be number one for us. But for the next case, it could be a little bit different. It could be they handed or mailed cash to somebody. Then we'd reach out to the post office rather than reaching out to the banks. So again, when it comes to our job and our unit, there's no checklist that we just go down. It can be different for every single case.
I imagine you just get, hundreds of cases, a year, thousands of cases a year. is it hard to sort of pick which ones that you're going to work on, or is it a big team over there? Or?
Yeah, obviously. So, the reports go through the chain of command, through our supervision and everything like that, and ultimately we get the cases that are assigned to us. We do have the ability to kind of be proactive with our cases if we hear or see things that we think that we can, make an impact on and get out there and get ahead of. Then we try to do that on our own. But obviously with these cases, like you're talking about, thousands of cases come in. It's never ending. So we have to obviously, look at cases that have the most potential that we can, identify a suspect or we always say follow the money. Follow, go through the bank, subpoena bank records, and follow where the money went step by step to try to identify the suspect.
And we do have many resources. So when you get to financial crimes in the financial realm, we all have the same goal, and that's we're trying to help whoever sent that money, whoever lost that money. We all have that same goal. So whether it's the banking institutions, whether it's us, whether it's the post office, whoever it may be, we all have that same goal. So given that little community, we do have task force set up. Brian and I are both cross-sworn with the Secret Service.
Okay.
So we do work with them here in the Orlando office quite frequently. We have FBI, the credit bureaus that we often reach out to. So there is this little community that we also can reach out to assist. So as we said, the best thing you can do is immediately contact your bank, number one. But once you get into our hands, we do have a lot of resources we're able to reach out to.
So like I said, the scam thing's one thing, but a lot of people don't answer their phone when they don't know the number, which is maybe a good tip.
Absolutely.
Or or if it seems like a scam, it probably is, and
right.
hang up on it and all that. But there's another side of this. I mean, there's a lot of sides of this, but another side is the skimmer side of it.
Sure.
A lot of people use their credit cards and their debit cards to get gasoline, to buy a cup of coffee or whatever, and that might be a more challenging one because everyday life comes in and it's just maybe a little more convenient to pay for gas at the pump than go inside. How do you sort of combat that, and how do you sort of deal with the whole skimmer thing?
So something that we practice in our unit is no matter what, if we are paying at the pump, we use credit cards.
Okay.
Don't use your debit card at the pump. Credit cards are easier to reverse. They take a little bit longer to charge. That's just an easy rule to go off of.
Yeah, and also you have to remember that when you use your debit card for things, you're using your own money. When you're using your credit card, you're essentially charging it to the card, which is you technically haven't paid for it yet. So the bank can literally, or the credit card company can literally just reverse the thing, send you a new card. We try to say do not use cards linked to anything else, bill pays, other things that kind of cause an inconvenience on now I have to reset all of this stuff.
Yeah.
So just go ahead and use a credit card, not tied to anything else, a gas card for that only. And gone are the days, unfortunately, where you can go up to the skimmer and kind of wiggle it, or the gas pump reader. They've made them so small now they're almost undetectable. On the bright side, though, we do work with the Florida Department of Agriculture, who actually does all the inspections on the pumps, and they've seen a huge decrease in the number of skimmers that they've been finding in their inspections. And the main reason for that is a lot of the new gas pumps now are going to chip-enabled card readers.
And that's harder to skim?
Correct. So it's the encrypted chip on your card, so it makes it much more difficult to replicate and to actually skim. So if you can try to find pumps that have those, that's also another sure bet on how to avoid it.
So let's talk bigger picture. So, skimmers are one thing and phone scams are another. And I know you can probably get a lot of money from those things, but I'm sure, I would assume those are maybe smaller amounts, maybe $1,000 here, $500 there. What about bigger economic crimes? When you're talking about embezzlement and big fraud when it covers, dozens of people or hundreds of people. Maybe talk about that a little bit. Tell me how that sort of comes into the office and how you start investigating when you hear of, $50,000, $100,000, $1 million embezzlement. What do you do for that?
Sure. So, one of the main ways that occurs is something that Detective Devine brought up earlier, which is the business email compromise. We've seen, business email compromises up to a couple $1 million with these large corporations. They'll have an email come from a supplier or a vendor. Here's an invoice. You owe us this money for, $1 million. And they always, once again, they'll use the, I don't want to say the vulnerability. They'll use kind of hey, this needs to be paid now. I already talked to your boss. He knows about this. And now that person on the line doesn't want to mess it up. So they'll send whatever the money is. We've seen in the business email compromises huge amounts of money lost that way.
And I assume that has to be a big business. I mean, you send $1 million invoice to a small business, or maybe not.
For
maybe
sure.
not.
Yeah, and obviously, and these suspects that are doing the business email compromises, they study, the companies or whoever, the real estate agencies. They know who they're getting involved with, and they'll maybe for weeks at a time have been reviewing emails, looking through online. You go on the internet. Most businesses have all of their main players listed on there, who the CFO is, who the CEO is,
right,
who does invoices, who does accounts payable. So they know who to target, and they can look up easily online, like, how much money the business profits, how much it's Glassdoor, all that's available.
Yeah.
So they know, like you said, they're not going to do a mom and pop shop for a $2 million invoice. It's just not going to work.
Specifically, I had a case about a year ago where the suspect was actually using first names and going back and forth with the CFO, having a normal exchange before authorizing the wire to be sent.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they like Brian was saying, they do make these they make these decisions not on the fly, but it's calculated. Now, fortunately, we're actually able to follow the money, and we saw where the wire went, and it went to a bank account in Michigan.
Oh.
And I was able to send the case up to the Michigan police, and they, from what I understand, got an arrest warrant and arrested that suspect up there.
That's great.
And that was about a $120,000 loss.
Okay, all right. And so you work with other agencies as
Yes.
well, because as I said earlier, not everybody is in Orange County that's defrauding other people in Orange County. It can
Correct.
be anywhere,
Yeah.
especially with the internet and phones and all that stuff. I mean, you really have like a global population that you have to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when I came to this unit, I had no clue how much we would be working with other agencies, other detectives from all over the place, even international. It's just wherever the money goes, that's where the crime goes. So we have to follow it there. And then, like in his case, they can follow up in another state and try to identify the suspect and take it over from there. Whatever we have to do, to get justice for the victim is follow it along and pass it along to whoever is going to take care of that.
And again, our entire squad are members of the International Association of Financial Crime Investigators.
Okay.
Which is globally investigators that, whether it's detectives or on the private side, are able to reach out to each other. So we have this global database. So where if I need to get a hold of an investigator in Japan, somebody's listed there for us to get a hold of. Yeah, so it's a very interesting and unique type of unit where we do reach globally.
How long have each of you been in the economic crimes unit? I'll start with you, Detective Hummel.
Yeah, I've been in the economic crimes unit since October of 2018.
All right, so about 2 years, getting on 2 years or so, a little more than 2 years.
Yeah, about 2.5 years.
And how about you, Detective Devine?
I've been in with the unit about 2 years, and I was cross-training for a little bit longer than that. There's a lot to learn with this unit, so there's definitely a learning curve coming from not knowing much about financial crimes into now we have addresses books of 10,000 plus.
Why did you want to sort of make that move over to economic crimes? Each of you.
I'll go first. I
Okay.
actually had a case when I was working as a patrol deputy on midnights where, unfortunately, a disabled adult was taken advantage of, where he had some, quote unquote friends take him to an ATM, pull out all the money, and pretty much leave him stranded. He tried to take a bus home. He couldn't get home. Took him hours to get home. What I didn't know is actually fell into the realm of financial crimes, elderly exploitation. And that's what really sparked it is even though we are talking about money, you are hurting people.
Yeah.
And this is a way for us to really get those bad guys from hurting people. Hurting somebody financially can ruin someone's life.
Yeah. And how about you, Detective
Yeah,
Hummel?
absolutely. And I'll just play right off of that. We have seen, the financial impact, whether it's a good deal of money or even just aggravated identity theft and how it can really disable someone's life and really just put them in a bad spot. And I'm glad you brought up the elderly exploitation because that's something we didn't bring up earlier. Elderly exploitation and, endangered or disabled exploitation is one of the other things that a lot of people don't know that our unit handles. And it's something that the state of Florida takes very seriously.
Are those heightened crimes? I mean, if you do
absolutely.
commit a okay.
Absolutely. So what we're talking about here are people that have either they have a guardian, they have a power of attorney, they have someone who is supposed to take care of them, do right by them. It could be, it could be any of our grandparents, mothers, fathers, disabled, sibling, and they need assistance. And these are people that are taking advantage of those situations.
Yeah.
And instead of doing the right thing for them, they're using their funds for their own good.
Okay.
Whether it's taking their money that they're supposed to be, supplying them medication, food, housing, whatever it is, and they're living their life with it. And now this person could be essentially living in squalor.
And you're talking not a stranger. This is maybe a relative or a family member.
It's generally not a stranger, though there are people that do come into people's lives that were strangers. They pose as a friend or someone that's, like he said, a neighbor that'll help him out. Hey, I see this guy is down on his luck. It seems like no one's taking care of him. And then they slide in, find out that they have a good deal of money in their bank account, and just go to town from there.
And that brings up another question I had about sort of the other side of it. I mean, when you do sort of investigate these and you figure out sort of who's the suspect, I mean, when you do arrest them, who are they? I mean, who are these people? Are they younger? Are they older? Or is it just sort of anybody?
Everybody.
Okay,
Everybody.
really?
Yep.
There's no sort of, oh man, this is who it's going to be because
that case that I was speaking about, the one that got me into financial crimes, that suspect was, I believe he was 18 years old.
Really?
Yes, and we've worked cases up until 70, 80s, 90-year-olds.
Huh.
Yeah, I think it's funny because, you hear white collar crime and the people kind of think of that as like, oh, it's like a businessman behind his computer doing this like nefarious activity.
Or like a computer programmer who knows all these ways to scam you.
Yeah, but with the way technology has gone, everything's on your phone. Your phone is now the most powerful computer you can have. We see it across the board, and people are finding ways to use, all kinds of platforms, apps on their phones to commit fraud. So really, it could be, like you said, everything from 15 to, a 90-year-old. So, whoever, because money talks for everyone.
Yeah.
Everybody needs money to live.
So how do you keep up with all this if technology changes all the time? And as you said, there's apps and there's cryptocurrency and all that. How do you keep up with all this?
It's constant training. I know, Brian, and we're going to be in a webinar next week. It's constantly updating the training. Like I said, this whole Bitcoin thing and cryptocurrency, I'm working with the Secret Service to kind of develop the way that we're going to go ahead and seize money, cryptocurrency, how we're going to investigate it, how we're going to get search warrants, how we're going to get seizure warrants. So it's constantly developing along with the criminals. So it's not once you get into it, that's the checklist. Like we said, it's constantly developing and constantly learning and just constantly staying on top of these new ways these criminals are getting this money.
Yeah, and the cryptocurrency thing, as we were saying, somebody like me, I kind of understand it, but maybe I don't. But maybe I read about it and say, I need to put some money in there. I feel like I would be the perfect target for if somebody called and was like, I got $10,000 of Bitcoin that I want to sell you for this, and I'm thinking, I need to diversify and I need to get into Bitcoin. And I seem like I'd be the perfect target for that.
Well, honestly, the majority of the things that we've seen so far haven't necessarily been Bitcoin investment scam. Okay. It's the suspects want you to pay them in Bitcoin because they feel there's some they can stay anonymous with that. And it's just a different way rather than going and getting a bank account at Bank of America or credit union where their name and address and everything's going to be on there. They're using Bitcoin, to get paid for the fraud.
Okay. All right.
All that Bitcoin is in cryptocurrency is just, again, it's a form of money in a different type. It's just encrypted data that represents the money. And when going back to you, I'm sure you've heard this before. If it sounds like it's too good to be true, it usually is. Mm-hmm. So that's just something to watch out for. If you're going up to a Bitcoin ATM to pay for a brand new car and they're going to ship you this car and you're only paying $5,000, it's probably a scam.
Yeah.
So it's, once again, just watch out for those types of things.
So both of you, as we said earlier, you've been in this about 2 years or so, a little more than 2 years. And so I'm sure you have helped some victims in those 2 years.
Yes.
What's it feel like helping some of these folks? Because, it's one thing to save a life or step in the middle of danger. And it's another thing to do that when you maybe do save somebody's entire inheritance that, this is what they were planning to retire on. I mean, what's it feel like to sort of help these folks maybe get back some of the funds that they think they were gone forever?
Well, I mean, it feels fantastic. And the part of the problem, the thing is all of this for us is so relatable because we all need money to live.
Yeah.
And any of us can think about like our own parents, maybe that are just now retiring. And I think to myself, what if someone got a hold of all their money and now, like, what are they going to do? So it really does strike home, and you kind of have to look at it that way. And to see that, we were able to get something back for them so that they can resume normal life and just go on, with their life. I mean, it really does feel really good.
And if nothing else, even if it's just providing resources or walking through, I know Brian and I have taken an elderly person to the bank and assisted them at the bank before. So even if it's just helping them as much as we possibly can, at least we're there to assist them, to let them know that there is somebody there watching out for them. And that in itself is rewarding.
So what do you tell people? I'm sure maybe before COVID, maybe you talked in front of groups or you meet people one-on-one. I mean, what are some of the tips you give people to not be victims of these crimes?
So, there's a lot of stuff that they can do, but we do tell people to check your credit history routinely. That's something that you can do for free at annualcreditreport.com. You can actually check your credit history with all 3 major bureaus, and we actually recommend to people to pick one at the beginning of the year, do another one in the middle of the year, and then another one towards the end of the year. And that way you can see if there's been any hard inquiries on your credit, if anybody's opened accounts in your name, if there's unusual activity showing up. That way you can stay ahead of it. And same with your bank and credit cards. These credit bureaus and the banks and the credit card companies, they will work with you as long as you stay on top of your finances. If you let things go for a couple years and then want to report it, they're generally not as helpful. But if you stay on top of things, every couple days, every week, take a look at your activity, make sure that there's nothing unusual, and if there is, immediately report it.
And you have to stay, like Brian mentioned, you have to stay on top of it. Never distribute your PIN for your debit card.
Yeah.
That is something that's written into the contract whenever you obtain a debit card through a bank, is you're not supposed to distribute your PIN to anybody. Violating that would violate them reimbursing you any funds.
Really?
Yeah, so that's you do have some responsibility in this. You just listen to your instincts. Really try to focus on protecting yourself, and in doing that, it'll help others protect you as well.
Is it sometimes difficult to work on these cases because people are maybe ashamed to come report them because they feel, oh my gosh, this person on the phone got $500 from me? How stupid could I be?
Absolutely. And we see a lot of that where people are ashamed. They maybe don't want to tell us exactly how much they sent because they feel embarrassed about it. But what everybody just needs to realize is this can happen to anyone. And, these people that do this, they do it for a living, and they're good at what they do. They're actors, and they can be very convincing. And the only way that we can actually help you is if you just come forward and tell us exactly what happens and let us get to work on it.
How about, since you've been doing this, 2 years now, have you changed your habits at all with the way you work with money and interact with money and handle your own money?
Absolutely.
How so?
I would say we're both very paranoid of everything now. We've become much more paranoid. But really, yeah, I check my credit score almost daily.
Really?
I have Capital One. I can log into it and it tells me my credit score. I look to see if there's any new reports on there. If I saw I got a notification that my email has been compromised on the dark web, so that email's now gone.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Same thing with at the gas pumps previously mentioned. I don't use my debit card there. I don't purchase things online providing my debit card. I'll usually use PayPal as a means of, so they don't have my information. So yeah, I've definitely changed my habits. Kind of questioned everything a little bit more now.
How about you, Detective?
Yeah,
Hummel?
absolutely. Same thing. And, use cash for stuff. Also, we obviously can't recommend services or anything like that, but if you do go online, there's lots of services out there available to help protect your identity. Obviously that come with a monthly fee, but those will notify you of any activity on your account. Something that a lot of people don't know is you can actually freeze your credit as well. So you can go to annualcreditreport.com. You can go through any of the main credit bureaus and freeze your credit. This will prevent anybody from going and opening up a credit card or getting a loan in your name, anything that your credit would have to be run in order to get that. Now, the only thing is if you wanted to go buy a car or a house or anything like that, you just have to go on there and unfreeze it, get your loan, do whatever you're doing, and then you can freeze it again.
Okay.
And that actually is free, and it has no impact on your credit score.
That's a good tip because, it's not like you buy a house every day or a car every day.
Yeah,
and
so if you have no plans on opening up new credit cards or getting anything like that, it doesn't hurt to do that. I've actually done that. Now, once again, not everything is completely, bulletproof, but it is, once again, something that helps.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
Detective Hummel, Detective Devine, thank you so much for chatting with me on Behind the Star.
Absolutely,
I really
thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thanks
All
for
right.
having
Well,
us.
stay out there and keep saving people money. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to Behind the Star. You can find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Also, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Until next time, I'm Jon Busdeker, and this is Behind the Star.